Hey guys, my name's Caden Norton. I'm doing the Psychology Module 1, Week 1. I'm talking about the second one, where it's about the careers. And I chose a forensic scientist. The value of the position, I have notes just kind of about what it is and kind of to help me along through this video. So the value of the position is a forensic scientist. It basically describes it as the application of clinical specialties to legal institutions and people who come into contact with the law. So it kind of is the psychological process of how when people do something to contact the law and it's in the wrong, the forensic scientist will come in, or scientist or the forensic psychologist will come in and kind of specify what the process of the criminal's mindset will be and what it was to justify why he did it and why he didn't do it. How would I like it to fit my interests? I just think understanding the background of the mind and how someone could do something so wrong or something not as wrong could be either justified in that person's mindset because they could or could not be in the right mindset, or they very well could be in the right mindset and they just are pretending to be in the wrong mindset. I think that this is super interesting just because you never really know kind of what is in people's mindsets. You know, someone could come across as the coolest kid, but at the back of his mind is thinking something very dark or very something just not very ethical. Why this career? I just think it's so crazy how the reactant of some things and someone's actions can be so different. For example, say somebody did someone wrong, they can sit there and either take it and kind of bury it deep down until it explodes eventually, or they can handle it other different ways. People handle certain situations in different ways based upon dependent reactants and codependent reactants. And I think that the psychological process of it is fascinating to me because at one moment you can be thinking one thing and then the next second you can be thinking something totally different, totally opposite to what you're feeling. Especially when it comes to differences of opinion, differences of outlooks, differences of how you were raised, how you were taught. And I think that there's so many previous experiences that have been done to you that can judge and determine how one person can react to a certain situation versus another person reacts. So knowing that with some of the people that you would be dealing with in forensic science is fascinating because you can take a person who is well-groomed, well-raised, nurtured and everything like that, and they could be just as bad as someone who wasn't raised very well, who wasn't in a very good situation, such and such, and they could be totally fine. So it's very interesting to me that, you know, you look for the good and the bad in people and how you could think someone could be so good and then end up being bad, or think someone's so bad and they can end up being very good. What education could this does this take? There's a lot of classes that you would have to take in order to be a forensic psychologist. You would have to take some education in criminology and criminal justice, which all requires you to go to in order to get a master's degree is what you would need in the actual field. So lots of school, lots of learning about how the mind actually works chemically, how it works psychologically, everything like that. I think that a lot of the people who go through forensic psychology is people who are fascinated with how the mind works biologically, how it works chemically, how it works just upon reactants and other reactions. Licenses, for each state you need a different license for forensic scientists. It kind of depends on which state you're in about how big of a license you need for certain researches upon certain people, certain fields that you can go into. So for licenses, there's not really one license that you can get, but it's all licensed through the states. Their salary for like a mid salary for a regular person would be $80,000 a year, which is about $38 per hour that you work on cases. So I would assume that through each different case that you get, the certain amount of hours that you put into it would kind of determine how much you'd be paid. The top 10% of the forensic psychologists are about $130,000, which is a big difference, which is actually $63 per hour. So that's a huge difference, kind of depending on how good you are at your job. Obviously it depends. If you're a manager and stuff like that, you get paid more, just like how in forensic psychology you can be paid one thing, but depending on how good you are at your job, you're going to be asked to come in for more and more and more, and then I think that your pay grade goes up. What was the most interesting? I think that the most interesting thing is that you take Ted Bundy, for example, you take the Zodiac killer, you take all of these criminals who you sit there and you think that there's no way that this person could be that bad. People talk about Ted Bundy being a very happy guy, a very extroverted man, and how he can be so dark and so cruel. And, you think about all of his past and all the research that they've done about his past. He was into certain things that caused or reacted to him acting the way that he did. And I think that there are certain and different ties that tie into each and every criminal. You take the Zodiac, or you take a lot of these highly educated, highly thought processed criminals, and you think there's a tie-in somewhere. There's something that didn't click well with them. There's something that happened. There's something that didn't happen. And I think that it's just interesting how a person can react upon some actions. And it's, to me, I think that it could be something as small as you walked on the wrong side of the road and saw the wrong thing at the wrong time. It can be as big as, your dad abused you, your mom hated you, your mom was into drugs, and all those different actions cause reactions in these people's minds in order to make them think the way that they think and do the things that they do. And it just is, it's crazy to me how people really sometimes aren't what they seem to be on the outside, but are different than on the inside. Obviously that means that a lot of people feel like they can't trust people, and I feel that to a point. But I think that with understanding the process of how humans can actually react helps a lot, because you can kind of break down the way that they act and react and things like that. I think one huge thing that I've loved doing is how I met my wife, and how learning the love languages. I think that the psychological process of how she showed her love language was how she actually wanted to receive it. The same way with how forensic psychologists will think, how one person shows that they do something bad is actually the way that they were receiving something else. So that's why this really interests me. Hopefully it was helpful information for you guys, and hopefully you guys learned something. Thanks.